Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise of your articles, your research, all those notes, and really deliver the clear, impactful insights you need. Today, we are diving deep into, well, a pretty ambitious and sometimes turbulent year 2025 for one of space exploration's biggest players, SpaceX. You've handed us a really fascinating collection here, everything from, highly successful crewed missions right down to pretty dramatic test failures and even these international environmental disputes. So our mission for you today is basically to distill these sources, pull out what's truly essential, and give you that kind of shortcut to being really well informed on where SpaceX is headed right now.
Yeah, and what's so compelling, I think, is the stark contrast you see right there in the sources. I mean, on one hand, you've got this consistent, almost dare I say, routine reliability in one part of their business. And then, bam, the other side is all high stakes, explosive drama with Starship. We'll unpack that duality, definitely, exploring the what happened and, crucially, the why it actually matters for their future.
Okay, let's get into it then. We're talking recent missions, yeah, and those big technical learnings from the Starship tests, significant changes to their ground setup, and these growing environmental and diplomatic challenges. Get ready for some maybe unexpected facts and hopefully a few aha moments that help tie it all together for you. SpaceX's reliable lifeline, the Falcon 9 success. Right, so let's kick off with a big success story. It's a good counterpoint, actually, to some of the other headlines. Let's talk Crew 11.
Yeah, absolutely. Just yesterday, literally as we record this, August 1st, 2025, a Falcon 9 rocket successfully launched the Crew 11 capsule. It's named Endeavour, by the way. This mission carried NASA astronauts Zena Cardman and Mike Finke, JXA's Kimia Yui, and also Russian cosmonaut Oleg Platonov, lifted off from Kennedy Space Center. And docking with the ISS, the International Space Station, is planned for early August 2nd, so very soon.
Okay, but this isn't just, another launch in the logbook. This is SpaceX's 11th operational astronaut mission for NASA's Commercial Crew Program. What does that consistent track record really mean for NASA's strategy, especially when you think about the issues other providers have sometimes faced?
That is such a critical point. The sources really hammer home its flawless performance. Favorable weather, sure, but robust systems working perfectly throughout. It just powerfully reinforces SpaceX's kind of two-tiered strategy, doesn't it? You've got Starship grabbing headlines with all the high-risk development, but meanwhile, Falcon 9 is just quietly providing this crucial, consistent backbone for the established space operations, like getting astronauts to the ISS. It's a really clear example of successful parallel innovation working, the iterative and risky world of Starship flight tests.
Okay, so from the, let's say, smooth sailing of Falcon 9, let's pivot. We're going into the more, turbulent world of Starship development now. Our sources detail quite a series of mixed results, setbacks this year. What exactly were the critical takeaways, the learnings from these recent tests?
Well, the whole test campaign has really been a masterclass in iterative design, hasn't it? Every single flight, whether it works perfectly or, blows up, provides absolutely crucial data. So let's look at Flight Test 7. That was back on January 16th. Involved an early Block 2 Starship prototype. What actually caused its destruction?
Okay, diving into the specifics.
Yeah.
The sources seem to point to an in-flight propellant leak. They think it was triggered by harmonic vibrations. Bit technical, but basically shaking caused the leak. That led to engine fires, they lost telemetry, the signal back to ground, and eventually the vehicle was destroyed. Debris scattered over the Turks and Caicos, nearby regions too. The FAA, of course, investigated, and by late March, they approved 11 corrective actions for future flights. It just really underlines the immense complexity of building and flying these enormous rockets.
Immense is the word.
Right. Then you had Flight Test 8, March 6th. This one had failures during ascent. Seems like a Raptor engine hardware malfunction. That caused it to lose attitude control, started tumbling, and the vehicle disintegrated. But despite losing the ship, there was a really significant engineering achievement here, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely. The booster. It was successfully caught by the launch tower catch arms. That was a breakthrough moment for their whole reusability plan. A huge deal. The FAA closed out that investigation in June, and they validated SpaceX's 8 recommended fixes for that particular issue. That specific silver lining, catching the booster, it really hints at the kind of profound reusability tech SpaceX is just relentlessly chasing. It's a stark reminder, I think. Even their failures are like these meticulously designed experiments, always pushing the boundaries.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, then Flight Test 9 on May 27th. This time, Ship 35 and Booster 14-2 actually achieved orbital velocity. That was a first for any Block 2 test ship, a major milestone. But even with that huge step, the overall mission objectives were compromised. Compromised how? What went wrong after reaching velocity?
Well, post-engine burn, they ran into failures, propellant leaks again, and eventually a self-terminating shutdown. Safety feature, presumably. The booster then exploded during its landing burn attempt over the Gulf of Mexico. Meanwhile, the upper stage was passivated during re-entry, which basically means they intentionally vented its leftover propellants to make it inert, safer for atmospheric breakup. So the FAA opened another mishap investigation, the third one, in late May because debris still landed within the designated hazard zones. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, like you said, it just shows the sheer difficulty. Not just getting to orbit, which is hard enough, but safely returning and reusing these massive vehicles. That's the really hard part.
Right, the full cycle. And what's the latest on Flight Test 10? The sources indicate it's been held up.
That's right, yeah. There was an explosion on June 18th. Ship 36 blew up at the Massey's test site during testing. It was apparently caused by a COPV burst. That's a composite overwrap pressure vessel. Basically, a super strong lightweight tank holding propellants under high pressure. That failed. And it took the whole Massey's facility offline. Estimates are like 3-4 months for repairs.
Yeah.
So that's definitely delaying static fire tests for engines and, yeah, the whole Flight 10 timeline. The next likely candidate now seems to be Ship 37, paired with Super Heavy B-16-1. They launched from Pad B, which has these enhanced safety features, like a water-cooled steel plate, a flame diverter. But of course, that's all pending FAA approval and them closing out the previous flight investigation, so still hurdles to clear.
Infrastructure, environment, and community tensions.
Okay, so it's clear SpaceX isn't just facing challenges, way up high. Our sources are pointing to some pretty significant issues right here on the ground, specifically around their testing infrastructure and this increasing environmental scrutiny.
Absolutely. That Massey's test site explosion is just a perfect example of how vulnerable that ground infrastructure can be. June 18th, Ship 36, catastrophic failure during propellant loading on the test stand. Thankfully, no injuries were reported, which is the main thing. But the facility damage was severe, it's non-operational now, and that directly disrupts their static fire test pipeline. That's a critical step before flight.
So in response to these kinds of things, how are they adapting their actual launch pads? Are they learning lessons there too?
Oh yeah, definitely. The sources mentioned significant upgrades to Pad B. Robust water-cooled plates, these big flame devoter systems. They're being installed to try and better protect the structure during these incredibly powerful launches. We've seen pictures of tower sections being aligned recently. So it really suggests a direct physical response to the lessons learned about just how much punishment the launch infrastructure takes from a Starship launch. They need more resilience.
Makes sense. Now, beyond the concrete and steel, there's this growing scrutiny about environmental impacts, community relations down in South Texas. What's the core of those disputes?
Well, you've got community groups filing lawsuits. They're targeting both SpaceX and the Texas Environmental Agency, TCEQ. The main allegation is improper wastewater discharge, specifically from the launch pad's deluge system. All that water they spray during launch, they say it's going into nearby wetlands improperly. Now, SpaceX maintains the contaminant levels are minimal, but it's definitely triggered much tighter permit scrutiny from the agencies. And it really brings up that crucial balancing act, doesn't it? Between pushing technology forward super fast and being a good steward of the local environment, especially in these sensitive ecological areas.
Yeah, that tension is definitely visible. And there was also something about a water provision dispute near Starbase that caught my eye in the sources.
Right, that too. Back in June 2025, the TCEQ temporarily suspended the county-provided water supply to some residents near Boca Chica, the ones not formally part of Starbase. TCEQ's argument was basically that municipal responsibility now lies with the new Starbase jurisdiction itself. So, in response, SpaceX is actually building its own dedicated water treatment infrastructure. It just highlights that complex interplay. When you have these massive industrial operations growing really fast right next to or even within an existing local community and its resources, it creates friction, global reach, global scrutiny, diplomatic and environmental impacts abroad.
And as SpaceX aims for this truly global footprint, it's not just local issues. The sources show their ambitions are attracting more and more international scrutiny, even diplomatic headaches. What's really compelling here, I think, is how fast a technical incident like debris falling can just escalate into a really complex international relations problem.
That's a crucial observation, absolutely. And we're seeing exactly that play out now, aren't we? Starting with that whole Bahamas booster landing controversy. What did the sources say about that initial agreement?
Okay, so sources detail this 2024 agreement. SpaceX got permission to land Falcon 9 boosters in Bahamian waters. In return, they promised Starlink internet terminals and some donations. Sounds okay initially, but then the deal was paused, put on hold in April 2025. Why the sudden change of heart?
Well, it seems after Starship debris, not Falcon 9, but Starship debris, unexpectedly fell across some Bahamian islands during one of those earlier tests. The original deal suddenly sparked this big backlash. Concerns about secrecy, environmental risks, what if it happens again kind of thing. And it's not just the Bahamas. Regulators in Mexico are apparently also reviewing debris impacts from their side of the Gulf. This whole controversy, it really complicates SpaceX's diplomatic efforts as they try to globalize their operations. If you connect it to the bigger picture, it just underscores that expanding beyond your home country brings this whole new layer of regulatory risk, reputational risk. One incident can have these really far-reaching political consequences.
Yeah, definitely raises the stakes. And then there's the FAA's environmental approval for Starship launches impacting Hawaii. That's also facing some serious pushback, right?
Right. The FAA approved up to 25 Starship launches per year, which involves expanded potential impact zones for debris or stages near ecologically sensitive areas around Hawaii. But environmental groups and, importantly, native Hawaiian communities are now suing. They're demanding a full environmental impact statement, a much more rigorous review. And part of the criticism is that the initial federal assessment, the EA, was apparently authored largely by consultants contracted by SpaceX, which, fairly or unfairly, raises concerns about potential bias. It really highlights this key question, doesn't it, about the transparency and the independence of these environmental assessments, especially when you're talking about expanding operations into new regions that are culturally and ecologically sensitive. It's tricky. Outro.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you, the listener, trying to stay informed? Our deep dive into SpaceX's 2025, well, it's revealed this really fascinating picture, hasn't it? You've got the just unwavering reliability of Falcon 9, especially for those crucial NASA missions, and that's sharply contrasted with the iterative, often dramatic, sometimes explosive development of Starship.
Yeah, what's truly striking is just how multifaceted the challenges are now. It's not just one thing. You've got technical failures leading straight to regulatory investigations, immediate corrective actions. Then you've got the very real impact on their ground infrastructure, like what happened at the Massey's test site. That has real consequences for their schedule.
Yeah.
And crucially, we've seen these environmental and community tensions really rising, both locally down in Texas and internationally Bahamas, Hawaii. These pose significant reputational risks, regulatory risks, as they keep expanding.
Yeah, for you, I think the incredible complexity of trying to do space exploration at this scale really stands out. It's so much more than just rockets taking off successfully. It's managing this absolutely cutting-edge engineering, navigating incredibly intricate environmental regulations, trying to foster positive community relations, and dealing with delicate international diplomacy all at once. It's really a testament, I think, to the fact that innovation, especially on this kind of grand scale, it just rarely happens in a nice, neat vacuum.
Yes, exactly. Ultimately, SpaceX's global ambitions, they're clearly under intense scrutiny now from every angle. Their path forward, it's going to be defined not just by their raw engineering prowess, their ability to make the rockets work eventually, but maybe just as profoundly by their capacity to navigate these increasingly complex regulatory, environmental, and diplomatic landscapes.
Right. A key takeaway here is just how deeply interconnected all these different challenges really are. The technical affects the diplomatic, the environmental affects the regulatory. It's all linked. So here's something for you to maybe mull over. Given that interconnectedness, what do you think will ultimately be the single biggest hurdle for SpaceX to overcome in their quest for, let's call it, global space dominance? Is it the technical challenge, the environmental pushback, or the tricky diplomatic game? Something to think about as you continue your own deep dives into the world around us.